Hey, how's it going?
Hey, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good. How did you feel about the last question?
First of all, thank you very much for the comments. So it's really helpful. That's the reason that I'm doing the mock interview. So I'm trying. I worked on your comments. I'm trying to improve those areas that you mentioned.
Okay.
So hopefully this one is going to be a little bit better.
So did
That's
you try to solve it on your own after?
I did another interview actually two interviews. The first one was actually was in fronted area. The other one, I had planned to do the interview in front end area. So yeah, the second one wasn't that great because I wasn't prepared for the interview. But the one that I did immediately after your interview, maybe 2 days after interview with your interview,
Mhm.
that one it was a little bit better. It was a
Okay.
little bit better than our last interview. So hopefully this one is going to be better than that
Sure,
one
sure,
as
sure.
well.
Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. So in this code sandbox link, I have an image here. And so what we are going to build is this. We are going to build a color circle panel, meaning that, okay, so here's like the color. And so I want you to do a few things. First of all, when you hover over any circle, you will see like, this kind of border pattern, whatever appear like, so it does like a hover state, right? So I want you to like create an effect like this on the hover state. And when you click on any of the colors, right? So when you click on this, the color, the name of the color pops up here. And then the uh, the clicking state, like this thing is different from the hover state. Um, and that's basically it. I also provided the JSON here for you. So you
Okay.
basically just need to get the JSON out and display it. So if you can share your screen.
So before I start, I'm going to uh, I'm just trying to provide a list in terms of the timing. So I would like to consider maybe between 5 to 10 minutes for HTML. So it's going to be HTML maybe around. This is the number first item between 5 to 10 mins. Next one, CSS could be maybe around 15 mins, 25, and JS could be around 20, 25, 20, 25. So this is the implementation plan in terms of the timing that I'm planning for. But you might be seeing me, to switch between these areas. So for instance, if CSS is might not become 100% complete, but I'm going to switch to JS just to make sure that I'm not spending lots of time on CSS and then starting to work on JS. So you might be seeing me to switch between these different areas. So let me start with HTML. So just a quick structure for the page, just considering the section semantic tag for this one. I think it makes sense. It's to be considered as the tag for this one section. So in terms of the content in the data picker component, so we have a header. So this one is going to be replaced a little bit later. Right now, it's just read as a static content. One thing that I'm going to do, because this one is going to be replaced dynamically. So what I'm going to do is adding the accessibility feature for this one. It's area live. Like just make sure that it's going to be considered. The reader is going to finish the previous font before starting to work or starting to read this font, the new content. So this is the header area and the first section. Maybe color set or something. Colors. So this the content in this section is going to be generated dynamically based on the content that we have in the colors.json. But right now, because I'm trying to work a little bit on the CSS part as well, I'm going to add some sort of static content here. Later on, I'm going to remove those static contents. I'm going to replace with the content which is coming from the colors.json. So right now, it's just it could be div. I'm not using semantic because I don't have anything in mind for just a portion of the page. But later on, if I thought probably it makes sense to use something else, I'm going to replace it a little bit later. But for now, it's just div should be fine for the colors. And div is fine because it's going to be, I'm going to use flakes. So it doesn't matter. I'm going to use div for this one. Class. Color. And then the other one is something that is going to be replaced a little bit later. Data color. The reason that I'm not using just a class because it's going to be replaced a little bit later dynamically. So data color red. So yeah, there's a color, colors, maybe even here as well. Just for styling purposes. So the same. So that should be the basic structure for the in terms of the HTML structure. So I'm going to work on the CSS part. Each one of these I can assign width and height for each one. So it's going to be another declaration. Sorry, I was missing the class name right here. Right here. So it could be I could be using just the attribute right here, but because I was using the class name, that was a problem. So yep. Next step is going to be, let me remove this one. Then color for the radius. Just trying to implement the padding, the just a gap between the border when you hover the mouse over the item. So for now, I'm just going to comment this one. I'm going to come back to this a little bit later. So border radius 50%, and then there is between these ends. Okay, so next one. So these are not done yet, not HTML, not CSS, but I'm going to start to work a little bit on the JS part before doing anything else. So in JS, so colors are coming from this JSON right here. Sorry, do you want me to import, because this one is not exported? Is it fine if I just copy this one from here to my JS file, or you want me to just export and import in the JS? Does it matter?
What is another way? So think of this as like an external API, right? How would you import it?
So I was just thinking, I do have I have two options. I can just add a name, assign a variable name for this font, assign the object to a variable, colors, data, or something, and then I can export it. But this one is not the JS file; it's a JSON. So is that fine if I just
Right.
copy?
Well, so what I'm trying to get at is think about it as, for example, I mean, the reason I put the JSON there is because,
Yeah,
it was more convenient than creating an actual API. But think about
right.
it as an API.
As
How
an
would
API.
you get
Gotcha,
it?
got it.
Right.
So it could be fetch. I can just fetch the content index. just returning the data, just make sure it's received properly. Console. Okay. Done. Done. That. So this one actually is going to be the response, not the data response. So now since it's already received, I can assign it to one of the properties of the color picker. So this dot colors is data. So I have the root. I have the list of colors. So next step, I'm going to just repeat the process. And one thing that I can do for the templates, probably templates are not good idea for in the whole component, but since this one actually is going to be replaced dynamically, so I have two options. I can just create the element, or I can just use a template. So for this one, I'm going to use it. Page. Wait. Here. Template ID. Item. Going to remove these from here. So for each item in the colors, I'm going to import this one. Colors. If there is if for some reasons there was an error and we don't have the list of colors, we're just returning the null. It's that colors. Otherwise, it's going to just thinking if I use the for each for this one, I think for each is fine. Later on, I can replace with the regular for based on the performance. If we saw there is a performance issue, but for now, I'm going to use the for each function method for each. Color. So before continuing the working on the loop, I'm going to add the template right here. So it's dot template name item. template ID. Template ID is going to be color item. So this is the template color. So first, the thing that I need to do before going through the list of colors would be creating an instance for the template. Content and color item. I do need a reference to this one as well. But for now, I'm going to just use a template for this one. Color target. So this needs to be done for each item in the loop. So later on, I'm going to move these two inside the loop. So I need to run the render, not here, but after getting the content from the JSON file. So list of for each one, color, target, and query selection. So the reason that I'm using a color target right here, because I need to update the value, but for now, because I'm just trying to generate just a basic list, I'm going to use the cloned color item immediately without changing anything in color target. So cloned color item is going to be select colors. So obviously, there is something wrong. I mean, I have only 15 minutes.
So, okay, you're trying to clone the clone color item. Can you go to that color? What are, can you talk about like your big picture strategy? What you're trying to do?
What I'm trying to do is, obviously the component itself is not a template, so it's
Mhm.
just a list of elements, but the actual content that needs to be generated for each color in the colors
Mhm.
data, which is coming from the JSON file. So
Right.
for those items, I did use a template. So there is a template for those because I thought it's going to be easier. Instead of creating the element and then adding the element programmatically, I thought probably it's going to a little bit easier to have a template with all those default attributes and that sort of things, and then using the template to import the content to the root, and specifically to this part of the root. And the reason that I used colors, this one, colors element, because this is actually this is referring to this part of the component right here, class colors. So let me just export something. But what I'm thinking is that this is not acceptable. I mean, that's a reason that it's frustrating for me. Even if I get the result, it's not going to be. And the reason that I'm saying this because it's a mock interview, but
Mhm.
in real interview, it's not going to be acceptable. It's 447. I haven't, I don't see that, the basic output, even hard coded, even static
Right.
output. So that's the reason for my frustration. So I have no choice. I can continue if it's okay with you, or if you don't have any. I mean, if you're okay with this approach, I can continue to work on it a little bit more to see if I can get the result, because there might be some minor issues or mistakes in my side, in terms of the these elements, or the way that I'm targeting those elements. That if I resolve those issues, I might be able to see some sort of basic or a static result at least.
Okay, then
But
let's take 5 more minutes, and then
oh,
after that, tell me, tell me like what you are planning to do after. So in 5 minutes, just trying to get as much as you can.
gotcha. Makes sense. Thank you. Console. So this one is fine. So next one is, so there was nothing wrong in terms of the data, but just testing it one more time. Data right here. Oh, data. Oh, no, that's fine. Data. Sorry. So then I'm calling render. Render is going to check this dot colors. If it's not, it doesn't do any. Oh, so it seems it returns null if is defined. So that was one of the obvious issues right here. So this dot color is for each is not a function. It's not colors. So I was just using the colors as the object, as the array, but it's the objects. So colors is going to be data dot colors. So this is the colors for each target, and then port this one, then next, at least static content. So next one, I do have the color right here. Name is the value is what I'm going to use. So basically what I'm trying to do is I'm just trying to replace these two values, data color, which is, data color is going to be replaced with the name of the color property, and also this one, the class. But since it's already the value, so probably it makes sense to use the style. Yeah. Instead of adding the class and then managing the class in CSS. So what I'm going to do is just adding the style directly as an inline styling. Target. Reviewed. It's going to be color I forgot the. Is that fine if I do a search because I haven't replaced
Yeah.
this tie? Yeah. Okay. Let's attribute. So it's going to be semicolon. Okay. So just cheat a little bit. Background color is going. Yeah. So this one is going to be color dot value. Color dot value.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Glad that you were able to get it up. I'm gonna stop here.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, another way to do this is you can also do style dot background or
That's
background
not.
color, which is also the same thing. But as long as you get it up, that's the first thing. So, and then like at this point, how would you create the hover and the click on effect?
So for click actually is going to be selected because what I'm seeing in the U image UR. So when you when the
Mhm.
user is when user clicks on the item, it remains the same, right? It's the
Oh,
status
that's
is going
hovering.
to
That's
stay.
hovering.
Yeah, that's no. I mean when you click hovering, yes, exactly. But I was just talking about this one, the blue
Mhm.
blue color. So it means for this one, I do need the selected status. So it means when I click on this one, I'm going to add the click handler. So that's one of the events that I need. And when I click on this one, for instance, I'm going to add a selected
Mhm.
class. So then I'm going to apply the styling for the selected item to be to have some sort of blue outline or blue border. So
Mhm.
that's for the selected item. For
Mhm.
the other one, for the hover actually is going to be, I believe, this is what I think, at least at this point. It could be just pure CSS.
Mhm.
Not, it doesn't need to be handled in with JS. So
Mhm.
I'm going to use the CSS for the hovering. I'm going to use this JS, adding the event handler to add the selected class. And in terms of the, CSS, in terms of the CSS for this font, uh, I tried when I was working on the CSS part, I tried to add padding. So right now I don't have time, right? So I tried to add padding and border didn't work. So probably I have to spend a little bit of time on that area as well to make sure that the padding, margin, outline, or border are working as well.
Okay. Cool. Cool. Cool.
And one more thing that I need to do is I assigned area live to this as well, but right now it's static. This part it
Right.
needs to be done as well. So this could be quick update. So I just need a reference to this
Mhm.
area of the content, to this area of the page, the
Mhm.
component, and then I'm just going to use a name, and then I'm going to update this one.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my plan, but unfortunately it didn't happen again. But yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it just comes down to the fluency of the language, right? I it's okay if you want to keep that kind of like the section, the data set, the template thing. You just need to be like really fast. And because I mean, you're able to solve it, which is good. But also there are other candidates, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
if it's the on-site, and they're choosing between like several candidates. Of course, the one that solve it with the most, the fastest, with the most accuracy, it's going to be, I mean, more likely to be chosen. I mean, there's other factors, right? But when you always want to like put your best foot forward.
Yeah.
But I understand this is only a practice route. So what I usually do is I would get questions like this, and I would try to like actually time myself less when I practice at home. So instead of giving myself like 50 minutes, I give myself like 35, 40 minutes, trying to get like in as fast as possible. Um, but yeah, I think it's just more like, the more you keep practicing, the more fluent you get. Um, and yeah, you definitely don't need, when you outline the stuff, I think like one thing that could be improved on is you don't need 5 to 10 minutes for the HTML, right? And everyone knows, like, if you're fluent with the language enough, everyone knows that you can render 3 circles using HTML. So you wouldn't, I mean, you were trying to like verify that, right? But
Yeah. That's right.
right, but in a real interview, that could be cut, right? Like, I mean, you don't need to do that because it's like very elementary.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. But overall, and then also like the promise. I usually use async await just because it looks like it looks more like a synchronous code, whereas like promise you have to go into like this like, how to say it, like closure. Like sometimes you're kind of confused. But that's personal reference. But yeah, maybe if you want to experiment with it, maybe async away will be faster. Um,
Actually,
yeah,
I tried to use a single await. I wasn't able to assign to the constructor itself. So it was saying you cannot assign async to constructor itself. So that was the reason I started to use the async await.
right.
But yeah, that was the reason. Is there any way to apply a wait,
Well,
like
so
async right now?
for the construct, I mean, you have to put async, but for the constructor, what I usually do when I have a class is that I would put something like an array. For example, like in React, right? You would have state, and then you would have like a variable, and then there's like an array in it, right? So
Yeah.
you can create like a state object. You put the color into it, and then you put an empty array, and then later you assign it um with the stuff that you fetch from colors or JSON. So that could be, but that's also the first thing is if you get it working, that's good. And then the second thing is to work on speed, and then the third thing is work on organization, which I think you definitely can get there with more time and more practice. And I guess the last thing is that this is just my personal preference, but I usually just like separate out the JavaScript and HTML. So I would have constructed this as like single like HTML blocks. Oh, sorry, using JavaScript to construct like a single HTML block, so I can like map them out or for each them, right? But if this worked for you, that's fine because the most important thing is to get this. But yeah, I think this time you're like a lot more improved than last time, which is really good. So just keep up the practice.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I know we are out of time, but just quick question about the language, because you mentioned there
Mhm.
is room for improvement in that part as well.
Yeah.
Was there any specific area that you noticed I'm struggling with the language?
Yeah. For example, like the set attribute, right? Like
Oh,
setting,
that's fine. Gotcha. Yeah.
and then the fact that you were trying to like spend 45 minutes just to render the
Yeah.
colors, right? Like
Yeah.
that's the problem
Yeah.
with the
That's
language,
it. Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Exactly.
So
Makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. Cool.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I really appreciate
No
it.
problem.
Thank you so
All right.
much.
No problem.
Thank
See
you.
ya.